Hello everyone and welcome to my escape. With it being June, I realized we're 6 months through the year, which means we're halfway done the year, which means I'm going to do some halfway through my reading journey. So I was looking at my reading stats, just seeing where I'm sitting halfway through the year, all that fun stuff, and I realized I have a lot of 5 stars so far. So I read 120 books last year and only 6 of them were 5 stars. And this year, so far I've only read about 50-ish, somewhere in that number, and I think I have 7 already, so I'm read half as many books as last year and already have more 5-star reads. So I figured, why not go through them now? So here are my 7 5-star reads so far in 2023. So first up is Heated Rivalry. I read this in January, February. It was my second hockey romance. So Heated Rivalries picks up 2 rivals, really. So they're the same age. They meet at the World Juniors, which if you're not a big hockey person, the World Juniors plays every year around Christmas, and you know, the top hockey players of each country kind of compete against each other in a week or like 5-day tournament abouts. It's a lot of fun. So they meet when they're young at the World Juniors, and they're both expected to go number 1 in the draft. So this kind of is a big fanfare of like basically head to head who's gonna win. I don't remember who wins, it doesn't really matter. But anyways, then they go to the draft, and obviously only one can go first. And then they're drafted to 2 separate teams. So one gets drafted to Montreal, one gets drafted to Boston. These are like classic rivals of one another. And they're basically the top 2 in the league or in their draft round. So then it just, over some time jumps, kind of follows them throughout their career. This animosity that's really built up between the fans and teams, and like that's really pitting them against each other. But between the actual players themselves, it's nothing but chemistry, okay? It's nothing but chemistry. So they have some spicy times here, some spicy times there, enter into a little bit of like enemies with benefits kind of thing. And that's really where the book kind of dives in after that. Oh my god, I loved it. I loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. A, because the person that wrote the book clearly understands the game of hockey, and not only do they understand the game, they understand the politics and the situations behind the game and everything that goes into it. They truly did have like a grasp on the politics of hockey, and I deeply, deeply appreciated that, okay? Because I can't stand sports romances that are written by people that don't understand the sport, okay? I also love these 2 together. There was massive character growth, as there should be, because it follows them over the course of years. The ending was like happy but also like bittersweet at the same time. Like it wasn't a picture perfect happily ever after, and I deeply appreciate that as well, because it's just unrealistic and makes the story kind of feel cheap in the end. This one, like, it made sense, it tracked, it still kind of hurt, but it was also gorgeous, and the whole book was just mwah, mwah, mwah. I loved it. Okay, so obviously all of these I love because they're my 5-star reads. So looking at this list now, I realized that I had 1 5-star every month, which is kind of amazing. But anyways, so that was January. February was Ender's Game. Now, this was a reread for me, so it wasn't a new 5-star. However, Ender's Game is absolutely incredible. I picked it up again because I did my capstone university project on Ender's Game and some other sci-fi literature. So I picked it up to do a reread for school. And even though I was reading it for school, it was still absolutely incredible and absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't picked it up, go do it. It's written in like the 1970s, I think. But it is so good. So you follow Ender from the age of like 6 to 13, and he's a genius child, and it's set in the future. So the human race is fighting wars-ish with basically an alien species. So they're prepping for the next war and anticipating it coming and happening. And they're raising the next generation to be these super soldiers. So they're taking all the genius kids and they're putting them in like a genius military school, and they're grooming them essentially to be like the perfect officers, the perfect leaders for this upcoming war. So Ender is one of these children, and even in all the genius children, he's like the most genius. The writing is absolutely phenomenal, even though, you know, you don't really stay with him when you're 6 years old for that long, but even going through, you can see how his mindset changes. You really do feel like you're not necessarily in the mind of a child, because it is like a genius child, but you do see the development and the age growth, and you do see kind of the establishment of him as a child. Oh my god, is this book phenomenal. Everything is in it. There's like commentaries on everything, like the use of child in war, child manipulation, state manipulation, surveillance, and how far does the military actually get to go. It has one of the best plot twists. Actually, no, slash that. It is the best plot twist I have ever read in my entire life. It is phenomenal. I cannot say enough about this book. This was my first sci-fi read. This was the best sci-fi read. This is truly, truly a phenomenal book. The next 5-star of 2023 I read in March, and it was Beach Read, and it's my first Emily Henry book. Oh god, do I love Emily Henry, but we'll get there. So Beach Read follows two writers, and they met previously in college, and they took college writing classes together. She always thought he hated her. Secret, he did not, okay, but she always found him super critical of her work and didn't really feel like he saw her as a credible author because she writes romance. He's a horror writer, and that really is kind of like a commentary on like how people view like the romance genre and stuff like that, which is interesting as a romance reader to kind of hear or to kind of like read about and dive into, because you know it's a real thing. But anyways, he's horror, she's romance. They kind of butted heads, but also had like a heated look or something like that, something very minimal in college, and then didn't see each other again for a couple of years, and now they both end up as neighbors in this little small summer vacation area, or this little small town over summer vacation. They're both facing writer's block. They're looking to step out into like kind of experience different things. They end up as neighbors, and then they make a bet with each other that the one could not write the other's genre. So the girl tries to write a horror story, and the guy tries to write a romance story. To make it more fluid, I guess, of a transition, they agree to show each other kind of how it's done, like behind the scenes. So for the horror, the guy takes her to his intended like research outings and stuff like that that he was going to look into for his next book that he's, again, blocked on writing. And for the romance, she's gonna take him on like fake dates and like fake romantic gestures and stuff like that to kind of show him like what romance is, to get them both kind of started. I love, okay, it sounds just like a cheesy contemporary romance, and it kind of is, but it also freaking slaps. It freaking slaps. This was so hyped up on all the platforms forever, and I just like never really looked into it. I was just like, yeah, okay. Picked it up on a whim, okay, just on a whim, and fabulous, brilliant. I loved it. I love January and Augustus, the two characters. I love them, okay, they're so cute. Their story was so cute. Also, it had me going, I'm sorry, ma'am, what? I'm sorry, ma'am, what? Okay, because the moments, okay, like 3 or 4 pages in, she gives you like her background of how she ended up in this house, and I was like, no, that's fake. I mean, obviously it's fake because it's fiction, but I was like, girl, what a backstory to have. Loved, so funny, so like also like touching and like dealing with things and everything. So Emily Henry does do that like good bridge of like humor, but also like real emotions, real characters, real feelings, real people. So good. Cannot say enough good stuff about it. So the next 5-star I have, I actually think I also read in March, but it could have been April. But that is Sinners Consumed. And this is a reread for me. So I did mark it as 5 stars last year as well. I don't care. Okay, I really don't care. It's still 5 stars. It's still 5 stars. I've talked about this in so many videos, but here we go again. So Sinners Consumed is mafia romance. So it's a dark mafia romance. It is the 3rd in the series, but the 2nd of a duet, where the duet follows the same couple. So good. The first book of the duet, okay, we're just going to treat it as a duet. The first book of the duet is Sinners Condemned, and Sinners Condemned follows two characters who don't want to be attracted to each other, but once they run into each other, they cannot stay away from each other, and they cannot get each other off each other's minds, and they just want to play games together. And it is the slow burn for an entire book. You get almost nothing. Okay, you get almost nothing. Sinners Consumed, you get all of the payoff of the first book. And a great grovel on top of that. So not only do you get all of the payoff of the first book, you get a spectacular grovel. I love it. It's so good. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Is it really fair to mark this as 5 stars and not the first one? No, not really, because would this be 5 stars without the slow burn of the first one? No, but I don't care because I liked the payoff and I lived through the slow burn. So absolutely 5-star for me. Expand your reading, try new things, give Mafia a chance. I love. You can't start with this one though. You have to start with Sinners Condemned. You don't have to do Sinners Anonymous, the first in the series, that doesn't matter. Sinners Condemned, you do have to do because it follows the same characters as Sinners Consumed. But yes, love. So good, so cute, so fun. And then the 5-star I had last month was Renegades. Guys, I loved this book. I mean, I loved all of them because they were 5 stars, but this is a YA sci-fi fantasy dystopian kind of thing. The world of superheroes, kind of like post-war-esque, imagine that. And basically you have the one girl who's a kid of the villain, and you have one guy who's kid of the heroes, and it's dual POV, so you follow both of them, and she decides that her best bet to kind of like bring the villains back on top is to infiltrate the superheroes' headquarters and bring them down kind of from the inside. So she goes undercover as a superhero, joins his team, and then they kind of work together. The commentary in this is actually incredible, okay? Like, actually incredible. Both sides are represented so well in the arguments of like, how much should the government be involved? How dependent or independent should people be? What are like realistic expectations? Like, just, that's not even encompassing it. It's just so good, and it like, both sides win me when I read their point of views. I'm like, you know what, you always have your point of view and you can appreciate another character's point of view. Both of these I'm like, no, you're right though, but no, you're right though, but then I flip to the other POV and I'm like, no, but you're right, no, but you're right, I see you're right. I love it. I'm utterly obsessed with it. It is a trilogy, so you do have to read them in order. I am currently working my way through the second one, but this was a 5-star for me. This blew me out of the water. It was so fun. I just keep thinking about it. I keep talking about it at work and like bringing it up to people. Mafia romances are kind of hard to just bring up at work, you know? But this, I can't get enough of it. You have to go read it. And then actually in the first week of June, I had 2 5-star reads, which is a bit crazy, but they're the same series. So, I mean, is it? So, Losers 1 and Losers 2. That's just what they're called. Losers Part 1, Losers Part 2. Guys. I think I'm going to be doing a whole video on this series alone because there's a novella that goes with it, and I read them all in a weekend. Guys. Okay, where to start with these? Okay, so these are like dark bully romances, kind of. These are the spiciest books I've ever read. Hands down, the spiciest books I've ever read. And I'm obsessed with them currently. So it is MMMMF. Okay, so it's 4 guys, 1 girl, and I adore them all. The polyamory in this book is executed flawlessly. I'm attached to all their characters. All the characters have like developed backstories, relationships with other people, relationships with their own families, and then it dives into like the relationships between one another in the main polyamorous relationship, and then also like from character to character, but then also them as a group and the dynamics there. I cannot say enough. I'm attached to all of them. Maybe one of the guys I'm kind of like on, but that's just because he's not my type. I am obsessed with this love story. I'm obsessed with this relationship. I'm obsessed with this group. They're so freaking cute. I mean, they're not. They're super, super hot and super spicy and like, wow. Definitely check triggers going into this one. Okay, this has a lot in it. Okay, I would not start off if you're not really like an erotica reader, or if you're not really a romance reader, or if you don't really do open book scenes or open door scenes. I wouldn't start with this one. I wouldn't jump off the deep end. That's like really waiting to drown. But if you have some backing, some history in it, you want something to freshen things up, do it. So Losers, obviously I can't really get into part 2, but Losers part 1 picks up after high school, but there's some backstory. So there's the main girl, Jessica, and then there's these 4 guys who are friends, and all 4 guys are like losers, and she's quote unquote like the queen bee of high school if we're getting into like stereotypes and stuff like that. So in high school, she bullied them. And then after high school is kind of like where the novella, there's like a prequel novella, and it picks up after high school. Her and the one guy have like a very kinky, spicy time at a party, and then the other 3 join at the end of the novella. And then she kind of goes, I don't know, like, how I feel about like what I like kind of thing. Like, pretty much her own desire scared her a little bit, so she kind of just cut ties with them, and she's like, I can't do this. And then the series picks up a couple of years after that. So she's graduated from college, now she's back in her hometown, and she kind of like falls in with them again. So she kind of falls in with them again because she has to work off this little debt because her and her friends do something stupid, and she kind of has to pay them back for it. Well, the way she pays them back for it is very interesting. Very interesting. I am just, I don't even know if I can do this story justice. This is why I need a whole video just to talk about it, so that will be coming. But yes, this is a, I don't want to say dark, but I will say very kinky, very kinky, very, very kinky. Again, the spiciest romance I've ever read, the spiciest book I've ever read, the spiciest material I have ever consumed, okay? This is it. There's a lot happening, okay? There is a lot happening. But yeah, it's great. It really like does like establish like everything between the characters, and the consent is just like top tier. I'm huge on consent. I love reading like BDSM or kink romances of any kind because they are so heavily and like deeply centered around consent, and they have these very clear conversations about like what consent is. Contemporary romances don't tend to do that. They're like, oh my god, passion overtook me and I fell into her. But that's a rant for another day. Anyways, the consent in this is beautiful. The relationship is absolutely gorgeous. All of the characters I just want to hug and hold, and I'm obsessed, and I want them happy, and I want them together, and they're so freaking cute. So freaking cute. So yeah, Loser Part 1 and Loser Part 2, 5 stars. My most recent 5 stars. I love. So we have some honorable mentions to hop into first. So I read Entreat Me in January. I really did like the writing of this. It was very like flowery and beautiful to read about. I did like the characters. I liked the development of the relationship. I liked the development of each character themselves. They were both flawed, had some character growth, were really like complemented each other together, and then tie that in with like the beautiful writing. It was really just like, it made my heart warm. It made my heart warm. It was so cute. So I do want to try more of Grace Davenport. It wasn't quite a 5-star read for me, but I always kind of go back and forth on my mind, like, should it be a 5-star read? So that's an honorable mention, and I will be checking out more of this author for sure. And obviously, like book lovers, Emily Henry is somebody I will pick up anything she writes. So I did read Book Lovers as well, and again, that's like a 4.5 stars, almost a 5. I don't know what is quite keeping it from a 5 for me, to be honest, but it like, when I go to like make it a 5, my brain's like, So there's something. I haven't put my finger on it, but there's something there. Regardless, it's an incredible read as well. She's got 2 other books out. I haven't read either of those, but I will get to them. I will probably read anything she ever puts out. Yes, she's a go-to for me now. Another honorable mention is A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I did read this like towards the beginning of the year. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I really did enjoy it. It is a series, and I feel like book 2 might be a 5-star read. I feel like book 1 had like a couple little things that I'm like, but I feel like because the world's established, book 2 has a lot more potential to kind of like pull me in. I did think I was going to have that series crushed by now, but my library just never had. I only owned the first book, and my library just never had the second 2 whenever I went. Like, I couldn't put a hold on it, and they just never had it. So I haven't got my hands on those yet, but I do want to crush those, and relatively soon, because I really did like that one. Curse So Dark and Lonely I don't have physically with me because that's at school, but I have this, which is Defend the Dawn. So she wrote Defy the Night, which is the first in this duology, and I read that last year and I freaking loved it. And I didn't realize that it was the same author who then wrote A Curse So Dark and Lonely. But because of how much I liked Defy the Night, and because of how much I liked A Curse So Dark and Lonely, I feel like I'll read anything she puts out either. And then the last honorable mention is my current read, which is Arc Enemies, which is the second in the Renegade series. So the first one was a 5-star for me. I'm almost done this one, and it is definitely feeling like a 5-star for me too, but I hadn't finished it yet, and I wanted to do it as my halfway point. So this isn't halfway yet because I'm not done it, but I do feel like this is going to be a 5-star read unless it really goes off the rails in the last like 100 pages or so. Very excited to finish this. I have the third one behind me. Very excited to get into that. And Marissa Meyer, oh my god, do I expect her to be a 5-star author for me. Marissa Meyer also wrote The Lunar Chronicles, which is an iconic YA series. It was written years ago when I was in high school or middle school maybe, and I freaking loved it. No, I haven't finished the series. I'm so bad at finishing series I love, okay? I'm sorry. But when I started it, it wasn't fully published, and I binge read things. I don't tend to go back if it's not out yet. But I'm going to do better at that, and I will be finishing this eventually. I freaking adored the book. I think I read 3 of the 4. I adored it. Okay, I was obsessed. I was in love. And when I found out that she had a sci-fi series out, I was like, I have to. So, loved this one. I don't think I was giving books ratings at the time, but it would be up there because I think about it all the time. Get into this, the first one, and likely, I don't want to jinx it, but likely the second one are 5-star reads for me. Marissa Meyer I love her and I will pretty much read anything she puts out. That's all my 5-star reads of 2023, my honorable mentions, and my authors to watch. Hope you enjoyed. Did you read any of them down below, and did you like or hate them? I love debating books, so let's debate. What do you think? What would you pick up if you haven't picked up any of them? Which one kind of grabbed you the most? That's all I got for you guys today. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!